Over the weekend in Alice Springs, I heard from local people firsthand just how bad it is and what they want to see happen to turn things around. Some say they're not sure it can even be turned around. Others are a little bit more hopeful, but all of them have a great love of the central desert place they call home. Now, I've got no interest in running down the name of Alice. I grew up in a small country town, and while they can all have their challenges at times, there's no better place to live in terms of genuine community spirit. But in Alice Springs, it's much bigger than just the ups and downs of a lot of similar regional towns. It's about government negligence, a lack of consistency in policing, a lack of accountability for how your money is spent. It's not a lack of money, but how that money's spent. And to be honest, a town of locals so worn down that many of them are questioning just how long they can stick around. Later tonight, you will hear from these good and decent locals who are pleading with government, federal and territory, to help them save their town. They've got a lot of the answers, only to date, no one's listening to them. Part of the reasons here is that while the government's been focused on a new constitutionally entrenched Indigenous voice to the Parliament, it hasn't been listening to the Indigenous voices in Alice and elsewhere, warning that there's a worsening disaster in remote Australia. The front page of the Territory's NT Times on Saturday said as much. And that's always been my problem with The Voice. First, it's wrong to entrench race in our constitution and to give one group of Australians more of a say on how they're governed than anyone else, based on the length of time your ancestors have been here. But second, there's talk of yet another bureaucracy out of Canberra, especially one dominated by grievance peddling activists. The idea that this is going to solve problems is just preposterous. Well, not before time a new body's been set up for the specific purpose of running a no campaign at the referendum the government has promised it'll hold later in the year. This new group, with the Nationals Jacinta Price, with Warren Mundine, a former Labor Party national president, of course, and the former Labor Assistant Treasurer Gary Johns, and former Nationals Deputy PM John Anderson at the helm, they all support recognition, but they say the voice is the wrong way to do it. Look, that's very much my view. Yes to recognition, but no to this plan for a racist constitution. The PM wants to pretend that Labor's voice is all about recognition, that's all. About being on the right side of history, he says, about being gracious to the first Australians. But the voice is so much more than recognition. It's about co-governance, giving 4% of the population an effective veto over what's done to 100% of the Australian people. And even though referendums mostly fail, this group has the job ahead of it because the government is rigging the debate. They're giving tax deductibility on donations to only one side of the argument, not the other, by trying to legislate next week when Parliament returns to remove the Electoral Commission's practice of sending every voter a little pamphlet that outlines the yes and the no case, to legislate this new thought police to shut down so-called misinformation when to date the only voice-related information that's been banned are online ads fronted by Jacinta Price asking Australians to think twice about this voice. If Labor was so sure its arguments for the voice could stand up to debate and inquiry, it wouldn't need these new laws at all. If the voice is the way to go, then Labor should be prepared to convince Australians about the need for the voice on its merits, not need to shut down and prevent any debate against it. Worse still, why are taxpayers being asked to support pro-voice campaigns before the same taxpayers even get to vote on whether they support the voice or not? But if you want an insight into what a future Indigenous voice to the Parliament might look like, look no further than Victoria. Concerns there are already being raised about the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, elected on a vote of only 7% of Victoria's eligible Indigenous population. They want to create special seats in the Victorian Parliament, open to Indigenous Australians only, as well as letting this Assembly have a say not just over government, but also the public service as well. It's these sort of details that Australians want to know about. is what's happening in Victoria, what the Prime Minister wants to happen in Canberra as well? Let's be clear, it's wrong to try and win a referendum on the basis of moral blackmail. So please go to my webpage to find out how you can help the no case, how you can listen and hear at least the no case, because this issue is far too important for Australians to be conned like this.